well, I'm not sure whose basic concept it is, but at least our half is built by the Americans, the Russian half is built by the Russians, and they interface with each other, but their basic design is different. Ours is a hydraulic system, electric motors. Theirs is more of a mechanical type system. But externally they look identical, internally they're quite different.
Astronaut Vance Brand, 44, from Longmont, Colorado, is the second crewman and is command module pilot.
Well, as command module pilot, I'm essentially the middle seat man. I sit between Tom and Deke. I have responsibility for understanding and really having responsibility for solving problems in the area of the command module, should they come up. During launch, I assist Tom, I run the computer. After we get into orbit, I work with the optics a lot. The time of entry, re-entry, I'll be flying the left seat. We sort of, in a nutshell, all are generalists and understand each other's jobs pretty well, but we home in a little bit on being specialists, and in that regard, I'm a command module specialist.
We asked Vance Brand to give us an overview of the joint mission, including the major milestones.
Next July 15th, we will have 2 spacecraft launched, one in the Soviet Union, one in the United States. We'll have 2 cosmonauts on board the Soviet spacecraft, 3 astronauts on board the American spacecraft. The American spacecraft will lift off at Cape Kennedy 7.5 hours after the Soviet spacecraft lifts off in Kazakhstan, a place called Baikonur. That starts the mission. After that, in a nutshell, the Soviets stay up 6 days, we stay up 9. But along the way, they will get into orbit, and we will launch into orbit behind them. It will only take us 10 minutes to get into orbit, but then it will take us roughly 2 days to catch up with them. We will rendezvous on the Soviet spacecraft. At the time of docking, which is after we complete the rendezvous, we'll be over the Soviet Union, and there will be TV coverage. We will lock the 2 spacecraft together, and after that, we'll stay in joint flight with the spacecraft docked for 2 days, and we'll have a lot of joint activities. We'll, with the cosmonauts, we'll be doing experiments together, eating together. We'll be doing demonstrations. We may have might have a press conference. We'll have many activities together. Now, there will be 4 transfers. It turns out that it's sort of a big thing to transfer between spacecraft because we have an airlock between us. So we will have 4 transfers during these 2 days when astronauts transfer to the Soyuz spacecraft and vice versa. We'll have varying mixtures of crews during this period. After that, after we are finished, we'll undock. We'll have some experiments in which we fly close to one another. Finally, Soyuz will land in Kazakhstan. We'll continue in space flight for a few more days doing experiments, and then we'll land near Hawaii.
Commanding the 3-man U.S. crew for the joint mission, astronaut Thomas Stafford, 44, from Weatherford, Oklahoma. Stafford, a veteran space pilot, flew previously in Projects Gemini and Apollo. He discusses the joint training.
Well, we started out both here and in Star City showing each other's side the basic systems that we'll use in each spacecraft. Then from there we've gone into the procedures that we'll use as far as how the commands will, how to come together, the basic operations of the hatches that open and close, the sequence that we bring pressure up, lower pressure down between the 2 spacecraft. And finally, emergency procedures in case of smoke or fire or other type of unforeseen circumstances, contingency situations.
Meals will also be jointly shared. Astronaut Stafford explains.
Well, we've already selected our menu for the first. Dick Slayton and I will eat an evening meal over in the Soyuz. Then later on, Colonel Leonoff will eat lunch in our spacecraft. At the same time, Vance Brand eats lunch over in the Soyuz. So everybody will have a chance to eat in everybody else's spacecraft.
Пожалуйста, Том, читайте первый параграф.
Да.
For both the astronauts and cosmonauts, it has meant learning a new language.
Мы живем в Одессе.
Well, language has been a problem, starting out, because neither one of the basic crews, at least the prime crews, could speak the other's language. We really had a crash course on it. We finally decided that what we will do is, for major commands and sequences, we will speak Russian, and they will speak English. In this, it works out very well, because when you speak a foreign language, you always tend to speak slower and speak more distinctly. However, on some of the announcements to the ground, we'll be using English at times, we'll be using Russian. As far as commands, when we open up the hatches, increase pressure, decrease pressure, we'll speak Russian, they will speak English.
Долине.
What's that?
Долине.
Долиния?
Valley.
Долиния реки Волги. Из окна, из дома можно видеть город и Волгу. Boris и его жена работают из центра города.
We see Apollo lift off, inserting into orbit, and we wish good luck and to further meeting.
Thank you. I just heard the crew say «Hayakali».
Спасибо. Мне экипаж только что сообщил, сказал «поехали».
Аполлон пошел на орбиту. Желаем счастливой встречи с Союзом.
Okay, we're still hearing someone...
The astronauts and cosmonauts were not the only ones that had to overcome language differences. Flight controllers and engineers wrestled with the problem too.
I think it's someone in your area doing interpreting.
Мы все еще продолжаем слышать переговоры с вашей стороны. Мы слышим женский голос. Нам кажется, что это говорящий по-русски. Нам кажется, что это ваш переводчик.
For both the Americans and the Soviets, it hasn't been all hard work, though. Here are some of the things they did during their free time. Some 27 experiments are planned during the 9-day flight, ranging from stratospheric aerosol measurements to crystal growth. A telescope to scan the celestial sky for extreme ultraviolet radiation, and a helium glow experiment that will examine the nature of gases found between stars were developed at the University of California's Space Science Laboratory by Dr. Stuart Boyer, one of the principal investigators.
On a larger, more global picture, one would like to know how a star is born and what happens to it through its life, and then how it dies. And some of these stages are better known than others, but it's clear that stars are born out of the material, this tenuous gas in the interstellar medium. Now, exactly how they're born, there's a lot of uncertainty, but it is clear that this material, which is a billion times less dense, more tenuous than the air in this room, is the place where stars get started. It's that stuff that makes a star.
Video crawler has started. Roger. On my mark, press start switch. Stand by for terminal count.
Apollo-Soyuz test project. Preparations are nearly complete for this first joint space flight between the United States and the Soviet Union. an effort that offers hope for other mutually beneficial projects in the future as a result of this common goal.
1, mark.
This special report brought to you by NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration.